Good morning, all of you.
Good morning, ma'am.
As we have studied, in the last class, we have studied about the different types of elements, their absorption form, and their importance. Right? Now we are going to study that if their element deficiency occur in plant, and if their element concentration is increased in the plant, then what happens to the plant? What type of changes occur in a plant that we that we are going to study, right? So first, deficiency symptoms of essential plants. For that, first understand the definition of critical concentration. Now, whenever suppose one of the element is there like a nitrogen, in plants their requirement is 20 millimolar, hypothetically, right? Minimum that's a 20 molar is required. Above that, up to that certain limit, then it's okay for the plant for better growth and development. But this is the minimum value. If this concentration get decreased, then plant shows a deficiency symptoms. In that, certain morphological changes occur, right? Either the leaf, greenish color leaf convert into yellow color, or the veins, right? That surrounding the veins, the yellow colors development, different color spots are formed on the leaf, even stem also, right? So this thing we consider as a morphological changes when the particular a minimum concentration of that particular element is not given, and below that plant has below that concentration level, means the concentration of the essential element below which the plant growth start retarding, plant growth inhibition process start, right? So that concentration we call critical concentration. Critical concentration meaning the concentration of essential elements below which, like हमने अभी example लिया, that's a 20 millimolar per kg. 20 millimolar, that's a minimum value. Suppose less than that, 19 millimolar hai, then also it shows what? The deficiency symptoms. And that's we call 20 millimolar, that's the critical concentration. The concentration of essential element below which plant growth is retarded is termed as a critical concentration. The element is said to be deficient when present below concentration, right? Below the concentration, if the element is present in a plant, we consider that this element deficiency occur in a plant. Now, remember one thing, that deficiency of any element, right? That for that the plant shows a certain morphological changes. This morphological changes are the indication of element deficiency, and that symptoms we call deficiency symptoms. Now, these deficiency symptoms are vary from element to element, like the nitrogen, right? Nitrogen element deficiency occur, then overall the growth is inhibited because nitrogen is required by all of the plant. Suppose magnesium, remember magnesium importance related to chlorophyll. क्या था? Magnesium helps in to form chlorophyll, or magnesium present as a constituent of chlorophyll. Can you tell me? Magnesium helps in chlorophyll formation, or magnesium is a constituent? Magnesium present in a structure, yes. Magnesium present in a structure of chlorophyll. Now imagine if magnesium is not there, means magnesium deficiency occur. Then ultimately it affects the what? Chlorophyll structure, right? If chlorophyll is affected, means greenish color pigment affects it, so that leaves become yellow color. It will even affect the photosynthesis process, right? So these are we consider the deficiency symptoms, and deficiency symptoms vary from element to element. Like calcium, if calcium is not there, then mitotic spindle is not formed, no cell division, no new cells formation, no growth in plant. And these deficiency symptoms may disappear when we provide the the deficient mineral element to the plant, right? Those element deficiency occur in a plant, we have to provide that element to the plant, and plant again shows the growth, right? And if not provided, then what happen? Gradually the plant death occur. Now, the parts of the plant that show deficiency symptoms depend on the mobility of the element in the plant also. Not only because of that the in soil the element deficiency is there, right? Suppose one of the soil is there, in that the calcium amount is very low, another one in that the magnesium amount is very low. So not only depend on the soil solution, one more factor is responsible for that, that is which one? The mobility of element, capability of the mobility of element in a plant. Can you tell me which are the readily mobilized element you have learned in chapter number 1? Which are the readily mobilized element that come from that older leaf to older parts to the younger? नो जैनिल, यहाँ पे NMG की है, ऐसा नहीं. बोलिए, चैप्टर नंबर 1 में लर्न किया है रेडिली मोबिलाइज्ड एलिमेंट्स. मैंने बोला भी था कि इसको 5 स्टार करके रखना. टेल मी. जुगल, गालव, आर्ची, आफिया, बोलिए. Am I audible? Yes, no. Am I audible? जुगल unmute.
हेलो.
हाँ, बोलिए जुगल. Which
मैम नहीं,
elements are readily mobilized?
ये नहीं खबर.
Remember NPKs, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, sulfur, right? So this NPKs, 4 elements which are readily mobilized in a plant, that we have learned in chapter number 1, uptake of minerals. Deficiencies and these elements are mobilized from the older leaves to the younger leaves, right? Some of the elements even mobilized just before the leaf fall, right? Before the leaf fall, you give their elements which can be the mobilized into the plant. So if certain elements are there and they cannot be seen this type of thing, then what happened? One thing that you know, okay, nitrogen, potassium, right? Here we are talking about these 3: nitrogen, potassium, magnesium. These have the ability to undergo mobilization and transfer from older part to the younger part of the plant, right? If the one of the part is undergoing senescence, so once the aging start, this element undergo mobilization and come to this one younger. ये younger में आ गए अभी, right? So now, in which leaf, older leaf or younger leaf, we will see the deficiency symptom of these 3 elements? Can you tell me? At the senescence, when these 3 elements undergo mobilization. it gives their content, these elements to the younger one. So now this element deficiency occur in which one? Yes, older one, right? So first deficiency symptoms easily visible in which one? This older, right? Sorry. So deficiency symptoms of nitrogen, potassium, magnesium are visible first in senescent leaves. Next, after that, deficiency symptoms of calcium and sulfur, they tend to appear first in a young tissue, right? Calcium and sulfur both. Further, which one? Younger tissue, because they both are present as a structural component. Now, if regarding to understand this thing carefully, if regarding to the deficiency symptom for this point asked, go with this calcium and sulfur both. Otherwise, in chapter 1, what is given? NPKS. S also, that's the readily mobilized element. Over here now it's a part of what? Structural component. And you know structural component में calcium भी था pactate, right? So calcium तो immobilized था. Same way now sulfur over here, consider this thing. So you have to see the content of the question. Regarding the deficiency symptom as go with the calcium and sulfur both. Regarding the readily mobilized word, then go with the NPKS. Right? In your book given this thing, we have to go with that. No choice. So the deficiency symptoms of calcium and sulfur tend to appear first in young tissue because they are not, see, these elements are as a part of a structural component of a cell. They are not easily released from the older leaves. So suppose here the older leaves, here the younger leaf is there, right? So calcium and sulfur present over here, and these two elements are not easily transferring from this younger. So now tell me, in which one, in older or younger, we will see the deficiency symptom? First, younger, right? So calcium sulfur, in younger, we will see the deficiency symptom first time. If NKMG, then older, right? Next. Boli, up to here clear the definition of critical concentration. What is deficiency symptom? Deficiency symptom first appear in a that senescent means older leaf and the younger, right? Now next, very important three points are there. In that first, chlorosis. Chlorosis meaning what? Loss of chlorophyll means breakdown of chlorophyll. Breakdown of chlorophyll molecule. Due to the presence of chlorophyll, leaves we can see in a greenish in color. If chlorophyll content reduce, it convert into yellow color. So loss of chlorophyll and convert the leaves in a yellow color. That process we call chlorosis. Now, chlorosis occurs due to what? That chlorophyll. Remember in this way, NKS, right? FeMO, magnesium, manganese, zinc. NKS, FeMO. Right? NKS, FeMO, magnesium, manganese, zinc. This all element deficiency, all meaning either if nitrogen का deficiency होगा, then also we get this thing. Only magnesium deficiency, then it also indicates chlorosis. Only iron, chlorosis like that. Individually, all have the capability to show chlorosis at deficiency level. Next, after that, second is a necrosis. Necrosis meaning what? Death of the tissue, right? Particularly the leaf tissue, right? Leaf में आपने देखा होगा कि that margins, leaf margins turns into black or brown color. Okay, like that. So that we call the death of the tissue due to deficiency of what? Magnesium, calcium, copper, right? Magnesium, calcium, copper, potassium. MgK, calcium, copper, Cc. Magnesium, potassium, MgK, calcium, copper. That leads to the necrosis, death of the tissue, particularly the leaf tissue. Next, third one, inhibition of cell division. Third, that's the inhibition of cell division. In that, lack of deficiency or the low level of deficiency, NKSMO, right? NKSMO, nitrogen, potassium, sulfur molecule. NKSMO. NKSMO. And third, and the last, that's a flowering process delay. Flowering process delay due to which element? NSM, nitrogen, sulfur, molybdenum. So first remember this one, delay flowering, NSM. अभी इसमें पोटेशियम ऐड कर दो तो क्या हो जाएगा? For inhibition of cell division, right? And NKSMO already तो यहाँ पे है. We have to remember this four only. MGMN, MGMN and FEZN, right? And this one separately, MgK, calcium, copper, right? So these are the four deficiency symptoms when plant undergo chlorosis, necrosis, stunted growth, means inhibit the cell division, then premature leaf fall, flower fall, bud, even delay flowering. For all this thing, these elements are responsible. First, that's the which one? Chlorosis. For that, can you tell me which elements are responsible for that? Chlorosis. Afia, unmute.
Yes, ma'am.
बोलिए, which element shows that deficiency shows the chlorosis?
Nitrogen, potassium, sulfur, molybdenum, magnesium, zinc, iron, and nitrogen.
Manganese, nitrogen आ गया.
Manganese.
Manganese. Yes. Next, Galau.
Yes, ma'am.
Necrosis.
Ma'am, magnesium, calcium, copper, and potassium.
Yes, correct. MgK, calcium, copper. Next, Jugal.
Yes, ma'am.
In that premature leaf tissue, that's a inhibition of cell division.
NKSMO, nitrogen, potassium, sulfur, and molybdenum.
Yes. Now, these three elements, NSMO, that deficiency shows what? Aksha?
Yes, ma'am.
NSMO element deficiencies shows what?
Inhibition of cell division.
Yes, inhibition of cell division. Good. Right? So, this much you have to prepare for critical concentration or deficiency symptoms of essential elements. Next, we are going to learn that toxicity. Now, this toxicity particularly related to micronutrients. Okay. Toxicity, remember, first related to micronutrients. Now, micronutrients in that, can you tell me first of all, what is that concentration of micronutrient? Definition में आपको दिया था. Galo?
Ma'am, less than 10 millimole per kg.
Yes. Less than 10 millimolar per kg. Less than. Right? Suppose, understand कि iron है. Iron is one of the, right? Iron is one of the micro element. Now, this element, suppose in plant require their concentration that is 5 millimolar. Less than 10 is required. Right? Less than 10 is required. So out of them, consider that it's a 5 millimolar. अभी 5 millimolar से suppose 7 millimolar हो जाता है, then we call it a toxicity. Right? Overall, if this element concentration present in a plant, we consider as a micronutrient. Now, one of the element like iron, their requirement is less than 5, approximate 5 millimolar. 5 millimolar maximum requirement. Now, above that, like 7 millimolar per kg, if this element present in a plant, that element we can consider as a toxic for plant. That leads to toxicity. So increase the concentration of micronutrient. That leads to toxicity of micronutrient. Any mineral ion concentration in tissue that reduces the dry weight of tissue by 10% is considered to be toxic. How can we see that now the toxicity occur in a plant for any micronutrient? One of the healthy plant, okay, healthy plant, that weight is there, and that weight up to 10% is reduced. We have to consider the dry weight over here, right? And that dry weight is reduced up to 10%, then we consider it's a toxic. That's the definition for toxicity of micronutrient. Any mineral ion concentration in tissue reduces the dry weight of tissue by 10%. Next, second thing, actually these toxicity symptoms are difficult to identify. And this toxicity level for any element also vary from different plants also. Like one of the plant, A plant, B plant, and C plant, right? A required Fe 5 millimolar. B that's maximum required 6. Then next is a 7. So suppose this 7 millimolar that is toxic for this two. Are you all getting my point? Right. So remember that the toxicity symptoms are difficult to identify in toxic. Why? Because toxicity level for any element that vary for different plants. Many times, excess of element may inhibit the uptake of another element. Right? Uptake of another element, like one of the example given over here, For that, manganese toxicity. Manganese is a one kind of microelement, right? Their symptom, when manganese toxicity is there, their symptoms is what? Brown spots, right? Manganese toxicity is the appearance of the brown spot surrounded by the chlorotic vein. Means this is the leaf, here the veins are there, and surrounding the veins, brown color spots are developed. And that thing indicates what? This plant has suffering from manganese toxicity, right? So manganese toxicity, this is the symptom. Brown spots surrounded the chlorotic vein. Now this manganese compete with iron and magnesium uptake. Manganese toxicity, meaning already manganese concentration is high. That leads to that actually inhibits the uptake of iron and magnesium, right? So now, can I say that if manganese concentration is more, leads to toxic, then due to due to it affects the absorption or uptake of iron and magnesium, can I say that Mg and iron level into the plant? Yes or no? Yes, right? So manganese toxicity, right? Manganese, it competes with the iron and magnesium uptake. So manganese toxicity leads to iron magnesium uptake. Now, this manganese even competes with the magnesium to bind with the enzyme. Enzyme is there. That enzyme activator is a magnesium. Okay. So magnesium की जहाँ पे वहां पे क्या bind हो जाएगा? Manganese. Manganese shows the competition with the magnesium to bind with the enzyme. Manganese inhibits calcium translocation in shoot apex. Calcium which is absorbed by the root, right? That cannot be, that inhibits the translocation towards the shoot apex. So due to that, see, manganese, due to the manganese toxicity, already we have discussed the magnesium level low, iron level decrease because it affects which process of these two elements, magnesium and iron. Manganese even shows what? It inhibits the calcium translocation in shoot. Calcium now cannot move to the shoot region, stem, branch, flower, fruit, leaves, like that. So can I say that this manganese toxicity can lead to calcium deficiency also into the plant? Yes or no? Manganese toxicity can lead to calcium deficiency. Right. So that's why this statement is given that excess of manganese causes deficiency of these three, iron, magnesium, calcium. And manganese toxicity symptoms, right, that leads to this deficiency symptoms also. Manganese toxicity symptoms, Dega, when their level is high, that leads to deficiency of these three elements. So these three elements will show the deficiency symptoms, right? So from this toxicity of micronutrient, these things are very important. Remember the first definition, that how can we consider this element is a toxic now. Then this example, manganese toxicity. बोलिए, clear हुआ toxicity topic? Right. Now next thing, that Mechanism of absorption of elements. Mechanism of absorption of elements, in that, very easy. In the last chapter, we have learned that apoplast, symplast pathway. Here, very briefly, very shortly given these two things. This, okay, here, one thing is, suppose this is a cell. Here the cell wall is there, right? So this inside the cell membrane and this part we consider as a inner space. This one we call the inner space. And this we call the region between cell wall to cell membrane, that we consider as a uh, that's the outer space, right? Here we are talking about what? Mechanism of absorption of elements. Now, in this, so first phase is entry in outer space. Elements that enter into the first phase, meaning what? Cell wall to cell wall in this distance, in this part. That is passive process, right? Apoplast through ion channels, rapid uptake. Over here, that in the first phase, the rapid uptake of ions into this outer space of cell. Here, apoplast is there, water movement, right? With this water, some amount of element enter, and that we call it's a passive process, right? Next, second phase, that is the, now this element cross the cell membrane, enter into this inner space. For that, they require what? Symplast, active transport, and that is occur very slowly. Apoplast, that is rapid, right? We have learned this. Symplast, that is slow process, and even active also, because over here it has to cross the cell membrane. Good, clear, very easy. Mechanism of absorption of element two phase. First, outer space. This one, cell wall to cell wall to cell membrane. Here the water movement occur with the water movement occur through the apoplast. With that, the elements come into this. It's a passive process, rapid process. Now these elements enter into the cell by crossing the membrane. So here it has to cross the membrane. That's why we consider is a simplest pathway, right? And this pathway is a very slow pathway. Any doubt in this? Now next. So now the entry or exit of the ions, right? For that we can say that the for simplest is there, particularly the energy is required. That's why we can consider that's the active transport, simplest case that we have discussed. Now next thing is what? If element or ion enter into the cell, that movement we can say that inward movement, and we call influx of ion. Influx of ion meaning what? Ions move inward into the cell. If any element is that come out of the cell, means shows outward movement of cell, that we call efflux. One is an influx, influx inward movement of ion, efflux outward movement of ion, and together inward as well as outward movement we call flux, movement of ions. Flux meaning movement of ion, influx meaning inward movement of ion, efflux meaning outward movement of ion. Right? Next, translocation of solute. Very easy. Chapter number 1. In that we have already learned that majority of, can you tell me, Chali, majority of minerals or ions that absorbed by the root system through which transport, active or passive? Majority by, बोलिए. Yes, active transport, right? As these elements are charged particle, move against the concentration gradient. Yes, active transport. Next, once it reached to the root xylem, how it can be the reach to the now up to that, by which process or by which phenomenon? बोलिए, root xylem to leaf xylem. For that, which thing is facilitated to transfer this ion or element? Tell me. What should be required to pull this thing upward? No, Jugal, this is not a proper term. What thing is required to pull this ion from the root xylem to leaf xylem? Which one is required? Yes, transpiration pull, right? And by using the radioisotope, right? By using the radioisotope means any chemical that enter into the plant. Now we want to study okay, whether it's translocate by the xylem or phloem. First, we have to what? Any element is there that we have to form their isotope and allow to enter into the cell. Then जैसे जैसे ये रेडियो आइसोटॉप ट्रांसफर होगा either through xylem or phloem, right? We can get the idea. This one is now translocate further through the xylem. So we can surely ensure, we can ensure that over here, that this element is translocated by the xylem and not to the phloem. So that technique we call radioisotope technique. Analysis of xylem sap shows the presence of mineral salts in it. Use of radioisotope of these mineral elements provide evidence that they are transported to the phloem. Right? So elements का isotope को allow करो to enter into the cell, and then see the movement in xylem or phloem. So scientists researched on that and they revealed this thing that these elements are translocated through the xylem as a xylem cell, not to the phloem. Would it clear this flux, influx, efflux, and translocation of solute? Any doubt? Right. Next topic, that's the soil acts as a reservoir of elements. Soil acts as a reservoir of elements. How can we, first of all, reservoir meaning what? Storage. Into the soil, large quantity of elements are present. How can we say that? So, you know one of the process, decomposition. Who will tell me what is decomposition? What is decomposition? Galo, speak.
Yes, ma'am. Breaking down of complex organic substances into simple inorganic
Yeah,
substances.
correct. Okay. Decomposition. You know the on the dead bodies, the organism, microbes particularly work and release the elements which are present in the dead bodies to the soil, surrounding the soil. Right? So by that way, into the soil, the large quantity of elements are present. That's why we consider soil as a reservoir of essential elements. Decomposition process, one of them. In that, breakdown of organic matter. Decomposition meaning what? Breakdown of organic matter into inorganic, right? Like carbohydrates are there. Carbohydrates, in that CHO is there. By decomposition, here in organic, these three are bounded with each other. By decomposition, we can separate out them, C, H, and O, right? So this thing we can consider as a decomposition process. So one of the thing is the decomposition. Second is weathering of rock. Suppose calcium phosphate, right? Calcium phosphate के rocks है यहाँ पे. Now when rainfall occur over here on this rock, gradually the thin particles of this calcium phosphate that reach to the soil, and by that way, in this soil, calcium and phosphate level increases. So breakdown of rock, weathering of rock, that thing leads to increase the micronutrients or increase the mineral nutrient, not only micro, increase the mineral nutrient into the soil. So soil supplies the mineral. In that, microbes are present into the soil. Microbes are there, particularly nitrogen fixing bacteria. Bacteria are also present. Other microbes are also there. With that nitrogen fixing bacteria present into the soil, which helps in to nitrogen fixation. Plants cannot directly absorb nitrogen from atmosphere, right? It has to be first convert into either nitrate, nitrite, or ammonium. And for this, the microorganism works which are present in this soil, nitrogen fixing bacteria, that converts this nitrogen compounds, diatomic nitrogen into, yes, chemosynthetic bacteria. Correct, Jugal. Nitrococcus, Nitrosomonas, Nitrobacter. This bacteria helps in to convert this atmospheric diatomic nitrogen into oxides or ammonium, NO2 minus, NO3 minus, and ammonium. It holds the water, without soil, right? Water that leach out into the deeper layer of the soil. So due to the soil particles, the water molecules are there on that, and it helps to hold the water. With that water, which can be easily uptaken by the plants. Next, it supplies the air, gaseous exchange occur. It acts as a matrix that stabilizes the plant, right? Plant shows the firm encouragement with this soil, so it stabilizes the plant. Now, if deficiency occur of essential element into this crop field, there is a need to supply the fertilizer, particularly macronutrient fertilizer we call NPK, right? Macronutrient fertilizer NPK, but in your book given NPKs. Okay, NPKs, that's the macronutrient. Sulfur, right? Sulfur, that's the part of the macronutrient, more than 10 millimolar. So NPKs, remember, that is the macronutrient fertilizer. And micronutrient fertilizer, in that copper, manganese, iron, zinc. Copper, manganese, iron, zinc. The copper, manganese, iron, zinc. This four form micro element fertilizer. First for macro element fertilizer, then next for micro element fertilizer. बोलिए, क्लियर हुआ आपको सॉइल टॉपिक? Soil as a reservoir of elements. टॉपिक में से जनरली Okay, very hardly the question come from this topic. Next topic now we are going to learn that's the metabolism of nitrogen. You know nitrogen that is required in a plant in a greatest amount because nitrogen that is present in almost all structure, all biomolecules, the requirement is larger. So now we are going to study that's the nitrogen cycle, how this nitrogen from the atmospheric that fix into the plant and how this nitrogen helpful for the plant. These topics we are going to learn until 5 minutes time. So take a break for 5 minutes. Vidya madam. Okay, students, are you all back? Are you all there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's start. See, from this chapter, okay, for particularly the NEET exam, two things that you have to prepare. One, that all elements and their importance, and second, this nitrogen metabolism of nitrogen, entire topic that you have to prepare from this chapter. इसमें से और कुछ ना करो, at least you have to prepare this thing. Let's start first nitrogen cycle. Right? You know, as a nitrogen is a constituent of amino acids, protein, hormones, even in chlorophyll also. Not only that magnesium is present in chlorophyll, nitrogen is also present. Even in vitamins, nitrogen is present. So plants compete with the microbes for the limited nitrogen that is because into the atmosphere, no doubt, compared to this carbon, oxygen, very much high amount of this nitrogen is present, 78%. But plants can take nitrogen only from the soil solution. And that fixation, the amount of nitrogen is fixed to the soil first, and then it is uptake by the plant. That is in very limited. So that's why we consider it as nitrogen is a limiting factor, limiting nutrient for both nature and now. Nitrogen in atmosphere that is present in this way. It has a three valence. Okay, nitrogen, two nitrogen atom that connect with each other, bond with each other, and that this bond we call it's a covalent bond. Okay, and which is a very strong bond. Strong covalent bond, three strong covalent bond is there. With the help of that, two atoms of nitrogen join and form N2. The process of conversion of this N2 to ammonia, right? Conversion of nitrogen to ammonia, we call nitrogen fixation. Remember this definition, very important. Okay. In next to next topic, one of the equation is there. In that this conversion is there, N2 to ammonia. At that time, I will ask if it is ammonification, nitrogen fixation, nitrification, what is it? You have to remember this. Okay. Process of conversion of this nitrogen, atmospheric nitrogen to ammonia. You know, plants can take nitrogen in the form of this ammonia, nitrate. So now this nitrogen is fixed in this one. So that's why we can use this term. It's a nitrogen fixation process. Right? Next, in nature, that lightening process, radiations, UV rays are there. They also form, okay, UV rays are there, certain that's a radiations are there other than this UV that we can consider as electrical nitrogen fixation. And this radiation reacts with in atmosphere diatomic nitrogen and converts into nitrate, right? So by electrical nitrogen fixation, if asked, then remember that N2 converts into what? Nitrate. Next, another thing is, see, it can be सिंपल रिमेंबर यहाँ पे नाइट्रेट डायरेक्टली दिया है, अदरवाइज इट कैन बी द एनी ऑक्साइड ऑफ नाइट्रोजन, आइदर NO nitrous oxide then NO2 or N2O. Nitrogen dioxide, nitrogen oxide, dinitrogen oxide, nitrogen oxide, nitrogen dioxide, dinitrogen oxide, right? These three nitrogen oxides can be formed by this radiations, okay, electrical nitrogen fixation. Next is industrial. In industry, industrial combustion, industrial chemical reactions, then forest fire, industrial combustions, forest fire, automobile exhaust, power generating stations. These all things produce nitrogen oxides. By industry, by forest fire, automobile exhaust, vehicular smoke, then power generating stations are there, thermal power are there, right? So from that the smoke is released, in that these nitrogen oxides are present. And microbes are present in a soil that helps into convert, that's why that helps into convert this nitrogen to ammonia, right? फिर ये ammonia convert होता है into NO2 and NO2 converts into NO3. Now here microbes are involved, that's why the name given biological nitrogen fixation. So either can be biologically or industrially by producing the smoke, electrically radiations are there. These three things that helps into convert diatomic nitrogen into the either ammonia or oxides of nitrogen, right? Sequence is what? Ammonia, remember ये arrow यहाँ पे आएगा, ammonia release, even actually oxides भी release होते हैं, but in your book given with this, so go with this, right? Now कंसीडर कि ये सॉइल है, सॉइल में ये सब फिक्स हो गया अभी, अमोनिया, राइट? ये सीक्वेंस होता है कि अमोनिया फर्स्ट कैन बी कन्वर्ट इनटू नाइट्राइट एंड देन कन्वर्ट इन नाइट्रेट NO3 minus. First NO2 minus and then NO3 minus. Ammonia converts into NO2 minus, NO3 minus. Now, in this, one thing that first consider कि ये soil है, right? In which this nitrogen is present. Now this nitrogen is first uptake by the plant. When these plants are eaten by the animal, so this nitrogen goes to the animal also, right? And when plant death occur, leaf fall occur or anything is there, so we call plant death, as well as animal death occur. So they form their decomposing material, decaying biomass. And on their dead bodies, the organism works and release the nitrogen in the form of ammonia, right? So nitrogen जो यहाँ पे use हुआ था, again come back to the soil. This is the entire cycle, nitrogen cycle. Now one thing is there. Can you make out this thing? That's the nitrate, right? Nitrate over here word given denitrification, meaning from the nitrate, nitrogen released. From the nitrate, nitrogen is released into the atmosphere. By which process? Denitrification. So arrow should be like this. In your book, I think so arrow ऐसे दिया है आपको. यहाँ पे भी arrow है और यहाँ पे भी arrow है. Check कर लेना. ये point remove कर दो. This is the wrong thing. Reaction goes in this direction. This NO3 minus, with the help of denitrification, release nitrogen into the atmosphere. All right. So this is the nitrogen cycle. Decomposition, one more thing. Whenever over here we call ammonification. Right? Ammonification is what? जो dead bodies में से nitrogen released होता है in the form of ammonia from the decomposition of organic nitrogen of dead plants and animals into ammonia, that we call ammonification. Dead bodies में से जो nitrogen release होता है in the form of ammonia, we call ammonification. Atmosphere का जो nitrogen है that convert into ammonia, can you tell me this process name? What should I call? When atmospheric, Archie, bolo.
Nitrogen fixation.
Yes, correct. Remember the difference between these two. When nitrogen, atmospheric nitrogen convert into ammonia, we call nitrogen fixation. Right? And when dead bodies, from that the nitrogen released in the form of ammonia, we call ammonification. Right? So ये atmosphere में से आया तो ये nitrogen fixation हुआ. Dead body में से nitrogen released हो रहा है in the form of ammonia, that's we call here ammonification. Right? बोलिए, up to here clear? First entire this cycle. Any doubt in this part? Now next. Also remember nitrogen, their main reservoir in a that's atmosphere, right? That's why we can consider it's a gaseous cycle. That's largest amount present in an atmosphere we call gaseous cycle. Now next, this ammonia when oxidized. Now oxidation, right? One more thing, कि जैसे ही dead bodies में से ammonia released होता है, that we call ammonification process. So this ammonia actually volatile substance, one kind of the volatile gas. So it can escape into atmosphere also, right? जैसे ही dead bodies में से ammonia released होते हैं, that ammonia enter into atmosphere. But majority ammonia that converts into these oxides of nitrogen, nitrite and nitrate. How? That we are going to learn. First of all, for this conversion, ammonia convert into first nitrate, NO2 minus. And for that, oxidation process is required. यहाँ पे देखो oxygen है. Here, no oxygen. So for that, oxygen is required. And that we call oxidation process. 3O2, right? Oxygen is required. Initially, remember this thing. So by this way, that NO2 is formed. Now to balance this reaction over here, this entire equation is given. 2NH3, 3O2, 2NO2 plus 2H plus and 2H2O. Everything with 2, just oxygen 3. Right? Remember this reaction entire. 2 molecules of ammonia that convert into 2 nitrite. Okay, this is what? Nitrite. Right? So 2 ammonia undergo oxidation that convert into nitrite. That process we called, this is the first step of nitrification. This is the first step of nitrification. Right? For that, the organisms are helpful, or which organisms actually perform this reaction, because this thing happens into the soil. Dead bodies में से जो ammonia released हुआ, some of them that escape into the atmosphere due to their volatile nature, but larger quantity that convert into nitrite with the help of the soil microbes. Which microbes? In that first, nitrosomonas. Okay. First is which one? Nitrosomonas. And other is yes, nitrococcus. Nitrosomonas and nitrococcus. Yes, they are chemosynthetic bacteria. Right? So these organisms helpful into the soil to convert this ammonia into this nitrite. Right? Can you tell me in nitrogen element we have nitrogen is absorbed by the plant in which form? Ammonium, iron, nitrite, nitrate, which one? Correct. That's the nitrate. Right? Nitrate. बोलिए जुगल.
मैम આ તમે ક્વેશ્ચન પૂછ્યો એબ્ઝોર્બ પ્લાન્ટ્સ એબ્ઝોર્બ ઇન ધ ફોર્મ ઓફ તો મેમ એમાં NO3 બધા નહીં આવે NO3 માઇનસ NO2 માઇનસ અને NH4 પ્લસ કેમ કે આની પહેલાનું જે લેક્ચર હતું
Listen, wait. मैंने क्या पूछा? Out of this three, ammonium, nitrite and nitrate, plant mainly absorb this nitrogen in the form of what? ये नहीं कि बोला कि अमोनियम में और नाइट्राइट में absorb नहीं कर सकता. Yes, it is possible, but mainly plant absorb nitrogen in the form of what? Nitrate. बोलिए, clear है जुगल?
ઓકે મેમ
Right? Remember. चलिए. Now on this nitrate 2NO2 minus further oxidation occur. First when ammonia undergo oxidation, then nitrite is formed. Now second step of nitrification. So 2NO2 which are formed during first that reaction, first step of nitrification, that further undergo oxidation and form 2NO3 minus. Right? This is the second step of nitrification. And for this, the nitrobacter, right? To perform this reaction, that is the nitrobacter. Nitrobacter helps in to convert this nitrite into nitrate. बोलिए, clear हुआ? Nitrite to nitrate for this bacteria, that's the nitrobacter, right? Nitrobacter and even one more, that's a nitrocystis. Nitrobacter, nitrocystis. Okay. So by this way, the nitrates are formed into the soil. And these nitrates uptake by the plant, enter into the living world. Right? So this nitrifying bacteria, nitrococcus, nitrosomonas, right? Nitrosomonas, nitrobacter, nitrocystis, right? All together we call, they are chemoautotrophs, right? They are what basically? Chemoautotrophs. We have learned already this thing in chapter number 2. They are nitrifying bacteria. They are nitrifying bacteria. Chemoautotrophs. Ammonia to nitrate formation process clear. Ammonia to nitrate formation process clear. Okay, next. Now, this nitrate, which is absorbed by the plant and transported to the leaves, फिर लीफ में जाके वो अगेन अमोनिया में कन्वर्ट, फिर उसमें से अमाइनो एसिड्स, right? Amino group is released from that ammonia, and amino acids are formed. But when this nitrate is present in the soil, प्लांट के बारे में हम बाद में करते हैं, but this nitrate, ऐसा तो नहीं कि जैसे ही फॉर्म हुआ everything is uptake by the plant. No, some amount of nitrate that remain as it is into the soil. Then what happened to this nitrate? So this nitrate, soil में तो different types of microbes are there. So जैसे ही some of the microbes like Pseudomonas. Next, Theobacillus. These are the bacteria. Okay, Agrobacterium. Theobacillus, Agrobacterium, Pseudomonas. These are the examples of this denitrifying process, right? Denitrifying. Now this nitrates from that nitrogen released in the form of again ammonia. Not ammonia, my mistake. Nitrogen. From this nitrate, nitrogen is released into the atmosphere. Okay. For this denitrifying bacteria required. These are the examples of this denitrifying bacteria: Pseudomonas, Theobacillus, Agrobacterium. Right? Now, when this thing is absorbed by the plant, soil में है, then जैसे ही Pseudomonas है, Theobacillus है, उसको nitrate मिलाकर converts into a nitrogen again. But when it uptake by the plants, so plant in that particularly into the leaf, it undergoing reduction and convert into again ammonia in leaf. फिर ammonia, in that amino group is present, NH2. That will is taken outside, and from that the amino acid formation occur. फिर amino acid से क्या form होगा? Protein. Ammonification, nitrification, denitrification, and nitrogen fixation. All four things are clear. Yes or no? Right. Now, just if you remember one of the enzyme name, पता है molybdenum में I think हमने किया था that nitrate reductase that helps in nitrogen metabolism. So plant में जब nitrogen in the form of this NO2 minus or NO3 minus is present, with the help of this, sorry, NO3 minus first, that with the help of this nitrate reductase, it convert into ammonia in plant. फिर वो अमोनिया में से अमाइनो एसिड्स डेवलप होंगे and then protein synthesis. Right? So nitrate reductase enzyme work over here. Now next, one more thing. Last में that NO3 minus is developed. This NO3 minus develops into NO2. NO2 converts into, okay, NO3 converts into NO2. NO2 converts into N2O. N2O converts into N2. Right? Gradually the oxygen molecules Okay, they released, and from that the nitrogen is formed. That's the denitrification process. 2 minus, then one more over here, NO. Oh, step. Then NO2 and N2O and N. One more. Again, NO3 first convert into NO2, then it converts into NO, then it converts into N2O, one nitrogen add, and now then in the form of N2, it is outside. This is the entire process to convert, denitrifying process, that from the NO3 to convert into N2. बोलिए, any doubt in this nitrogen cycle topic? Now it's time for revision. Bindya madam. Tell me. When nitrogen, atmospheric nitrogen convert into ammonia, we call, write down your answer in chat box quickly. Correct. N2 fixation, right? N2 fixation can be occur by that biological, industrial, electrical, by any way, right? In the form of ammonia, nitrogen, or oxides. Next, when nitrogen that converts into ammonia, okay, or decomposition of dead bodies, and from that the ammonia is released into the soil. That process we call correct. Next, first, see, for ammonifications, remember, certain organisms are there, okay, which acts on dead bodies. So many are there. One of the example like Bacillus vulgaris. Then another, that's the actinomyces. Bacillus vulgaris, actinomyces. These are the examples of organisms which perform this ammonification. Next, ammonia converts into NO2 minus nitrite. For that, this reaction is facilitated by which organisms? One is a nitrosomonas, another ammonia to NO2. Yes, correct. Nitrococcus and nitrosomonas both. Now this NO2 converts into NO3 by which organisms? Correct. Nitrocystis, nitrobacter. Next. Now if this nitrate present in a soil and this nitrate that convert into again that at nitrogen, diatomic nitrogen, by denitrifying process. So for that, which organisms work? Denitrifying bacteria examples. Correct. Pseudomonas, Theobacillus, Agrobacterium. Very good.